Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Cass with College of Lore.
I am the Penitent with College of Lore.
This video is just for eyes.
Yeah,
This one's just for eyes. We're doing this because we wanted to.
yep, little apologies if we sound tired, we are.
We're really tired. I'm
But
sick. I'm going through it, guys.
we're getting content out to you
We're doing our best.
For the
I
viewers.
feel like garbage, but I want you guys to know how much I love you, so... If I sound tired or bad, it's because I'm tired and bad.
um, we are on that grind to 100 subscribers by the end of the year.
100 subscribers by the end of the year. Woo!
So if you could click that button, it really helps us out here at College of Lore.
We love you.
You could also like the video, share the video around, comment. This is kind of a video where we're just talking about our favorite characters.
Yep, we're talking about the favorite characters that we've made.
And I would love in the comments if you tell us about your favorite characters.
Yeah, tell us about your favorite. Yeah. I love hearing about people's D&D characters. It is genuinely one of my favorite things to listen to other people talk about.
Some videos people have commented these like long paragraph essays about like their favorite D&D characters, the way their characters interact, and we don't usually comment on those, but I promise you we're reading them.
We're reading them, and also I literally love them. Please tell me all about your favorite characters. I will listen to people talk about their D&D characters for like days on end, as long as they also let me talk about mine, which is what we're going to do in this video. Shout out to our patrons on Patreon, by the way. Remy Sweeten of Winter, I love you guys.
Yeah. If you would like to support us, join our Discord and check out our other stuff, get some early access to some things when we have more of an audience.
When we have the ability to upload videos on Patreon, because it doesn't let me do that yet.
Check us out on Patreon.
Yeah. Woo. Anyway, let's talk about our favorite guys.
Yeah, so we kind of wrote out this list of like 4 or 5-ish people
Yeah.
to talk about.
A lot of them come from the same campaigns that we've both played in.
Which was actually entirely accidental.
Yeah. We just really like those games in particular.
Some of
There's
these,
some that are our favorites.
some of these are DM piloted characters,
Some of these are DM PCs.
but who ended up sticking as part of the plot points and getting their own stories.
And I love them.
You know, the same way that like we talked about in our College of Lore rewatches, Legend of Vox Machina. Check that out, by the way. Post on Saturdays.
Yep.
We go over the show episode by episode. As Allura is Matt's self-insert, there are some characters that are largely functioning in that way for us.
Yeah. You especially have more of those because you were the DM when we started playing
Yes.
together all the time.
For about the first year and a half we played together, I was the
And now I
forever
DM most of the time.
Yeah.
So we've traded off at some point.
So I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about first is there's a character that I would love to talk about,
Yes.
but I can't.
Yeah.
Because
Sad.
she is currently in...
Because someday she's going to exist for real.
So we have
I know that doesn't make any sense if you say it like that.
a media source that we're working on right now.
Someday, all of this YouTube channel, everything that we're doing here, eventually is going to go toward funding our own animated series.
Yeah, she is...
Which is actually also based off a D&D game, which is why we're talking about her here.
She is a character, she is probably the main character of that game, of that series. And I don't want to touch on her here to get too into spoilers. One day we'll make a video talking about that series. It's called Battery Arcana.
It's going to be so good, guys. It's going to be so good.
So,
I'm so excited to make it, but it won't be a real thing for a long time.
why don't we just jump into this? Why don't you tell us about the first one on your list?
Okay, I love her.
Yeah.
I love her. That's it. That's all I have to say. I lose all my brain when I try to talk about these characters.
Let's start name, race, class.
Okay. I'm sorry, this is hard for me. I'm so excited it's hard to talk. I really like talking about them. Okay. I'm also embarrassed to talk about my D&D characters publicly on the internet where anyone can see. This is embarrassing. I'm like bearing a piece of my soul right now. This is awkward. Okay. So I don't know why I'm struggling with this. Her name is Aise.
Alright.
Aise Novius. That sure is a name that she has. It's one of them.
Yeah, she's got like 1,000 different...
She has a lot of different names for a lot of different reasons, some of them less savory than others. But that's her name, as far as anyone in the campaign is concerned. For a while. She is a high elf. Actually, at the beginning of the first game we used her in, she was an Aasimar. Because she was reincarnated. She died and came back to life before the campaign actually ever even started. And part of it was uncovering why that happened. But she was an Aasimar in the actual game and eventually got put back into her high elf body. She was a sorcerer. She was a Divine Soul sorcerer. She was the first Divine Soul sorcerer I ever played, right?
Yes.
Yeah, by like a lot. I love Divine Soul sorcerers and I love them because of her. She's my favorite character in anything ever. I talk about the Briarwoods a lot on here. But she's my favorite. She was the first D&D character I was really, really attached to. So kind of that just has like she was not the first one I made or played with. But she was the first one that did anything that really took off. So I'm very attached to her. And I don't know what else to say. I'm gonna have to help you ask me questions about her, because I don't know how to do
Tell me about her backstory.
Okay. So before she died, on all of this, obviously this is pre-campaign stuff. So she was raised in a kind of a very typical high society, high elf area. There were very, very few humans at all where she lived for most of her life, where she grew up. She didn't have any memories of the fact that she was deeply fucked up as a child, but she was. She basically got, memory wiped shortly before she set out on her own adventure, very much against the wishes of her parents and her people. And so as a late teens, young adult, God, I don't even remember how old she was, because it's changed a million times with different versions of this story. But she kind of, through a random series of circumstances, she ended up in the Underdark. Which is not a very good place for high elves to be. As a general rule. Drow don't really like them very much, and that is exactly who she encountered. In most versions of this story, and this is something that's been fleshed out over time, because it never really got played, she was captured by, proper, drow slavers, and liberated by what you could call a revolutionary group. You could certainly call it that. They were trying to be. They were trying to be a revolutionary group, and that is how she met her boyfriend, who I also love very much, and who you're going to talk about, right? No?
No.
What? What? You're not going to talk about him? This sucks. I love him so much. I guess I'll have to talk about him by myself. This is the worst ever. Fine, I'll have to talk about Karansarin. He's my favorite. That's Aisa's boyfriend. I'm so embarrassed right now. I feel like I'm making a fool of myself online. Anyway, I love him. This video is just me talking about how much I love Cora now. She got rescued by him and two at the time. Was it two? I don't remember who all was there at that point. I think it was two at that point. Him and two of his best friends, and slowly their little gang of people kind of expanded and expanded, because Kor was trying to basically restart this revolutionary group of drow, who did not like Lolth and did not super like the fact that people on the surface were racist, and kind of wanted to solve both those problems at the same time by being super, super cool. And she was like, oh, okay, that sounds like a good thing to do, generally. Also, you saved my life, so I'm going to go along with this. And then she fell in love.
Yep.
And then she died. She went on a diplomatic mission to meet with other high elves, partly to talk about this revolutionary group. And she was murdered by one of them for consorting with drow.
And then
randomly, she woke up as an Aasimar and did not know why or what had happened. And from there, she went on to meet the rest of the party and have adventures, and eventually go find Kor again. And kiss. And fall in love.
Yeah, that's the base backstory for this character.
I love her so much. I love her so much. I love her so much.
So
I could literally talk about Ayase for days. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
You asked me to do this.
I did.
You told me to do this video.
So
You get to hear this now.
my first character.
Tell me about your first character.
I've mentioned her in a couple of videos before and in Game Tales earlier.
Yeah.
Her name is Cirque. She is a demigod rogue, demigod of Tempest, of Talos specifically.
Storms. I love Cirque.
Specializing in lightning is kind of the headcanon I have for her. She's this kind of rebellious teenage...
She's a little stinker.
Yeah, stinker's a better word.
She's a little stinker. She's a little rapscallion. I'm helping.
She is a arcane trickster rogue who is basically, her whole thing is that she is a exiled demigod. Exiled for lack of brutality because Talos is like that. And then she joined a circus.
Hence the name.
Yeah. Part of her exile was her name was entirely wiped from her knowledge. Her name, her father's true name, her other sister's true name were all wiped from her brain.
Yikes.
So she kind of adopted a name after becoming a circus acrobat. And yeah, she's kind of this little... Like, she has a little bit of godly power, but not enough to be like
She's kind of bitey.
Yeah. To be like a ruler or something, and she just kind of fucks around. And her first campaign was a like Curse of Strahd campaign where she got pulled in from nowhere, kind of like the Misdo in that game. She's since been adopted by other campaigns, namely campaigns with Ayase.
Yeah.
Where she's functioned...
Smushed her in there.
Where she's functioned in a lot of ways like a guardian angel type for that character.
Except that she's a demigod.
Yeah.
Instead of an angel. Because Ayase is the angel of this bunch.
Yes.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, that's Cirque. Arcane
her.
Trickster Demigod. If you want to know more about the Demigod class, check out our feature Homebrew Hour.
I feel like I talked way more than you. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Cirque's backstory is way less complicated.
Okay, that's true. Ayase has always been very complicated. There's so much more than what I said, but like I'm not gonna go any deeper into it.
Yeah, Cirque's backstory is exiled demigod joined the circus.
And then hung out with a bunch of other guys.
Yeah. That's where she starts the campaign, as this little circus rogue.
She's bitey.
And I love her.
She's a little bit crazy and I love her.
Think like... So, the way I got inspiration for this character is one thing is like talk about how I got inspired for all these characters.
Yeah.
I was just scrolling through random pictures of like to get D&D inspiration for a character.
Yeah.
And before I knew anything about the source, I stumbled onto Art of Jinx, League of Legends Arcane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's cool, alt aesthetic, blue hair. I can work with this.
Yeah. And didn't take from the personality really at all.
I didn't know anything about Jinx Arcane at the time at all. But I just like, lightning demigod is the impression I get from this. If I were doing anything like Jinx Arcade, she'd be a artificer, not a rogue.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway.
I don't even remember how I got inspiration for Ayase. I was fucking around and finding out.
Your next character.
Oh.
Which, the inspiration for this one, I believe, was... What if I made, like, the cosmic balancing of Ayise's energy?
Yeah. What if I made Ayase, but, like, the opposite? Inverted Ayase. Because this was, like, basically the second really strong character I made. And I was like, okay, so I have this one. What if I took the general energy of Ayase, but I corrupted all of it and made it weird and worse and annoying.
This is actually fairly similar in personality to Cirque.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Cirque's blueprint. Personality-wise, her name is Brat, and that tells you a lot of what you need to know about her.
Chosen name.
Yes, she chose to name herself Brat because, not just because, I've definitely played some characters who chose their names because it was what people called them and they didn't know what else to call themselves. She definitely could have thought of other stuff, she just wanted to be as annoying as possible. So she named herself an insult that people called her a lot.
It was that or Shathid.
It was not the god. I think she would absolutely do that in another world. I think she would be thrilled to call herself that in another world. She is a tiefling. She is also a sorcerer. I love sorcerers. They were definitely the first, like, love of my life class. They were also, that was the first character I ever made. She's a tiefling sorcerer.
Pyromancer?
She's a pyromancer, yes, which is from the Kaladesh expansion, I think. We tweaked it a little to make it, like, actually better. The gist of her story is she did not remember much of her very early childhood. The only thing she really remembered was being on the streets. And then she found out that actually she was, like, basically kidnapped and polymorphed and abandoned. And actually, she was royalty, which is a standard trope, but man, I didn't know.
So, yeah, no.
You did that to her.
You did not know making Brat. You're like, I'm going to make this shithead
I'm gonna make this random little street kid.
Because the prompting I gave you going into that game was make someone who would be interesting to be drafted into a military troop.
Yes. And what I came up with was most annoying tiefling in the world who literally could not care less about me.
And it turns out, oh no, she is actually, like, kidnapped and polymorphed by a rebellion, the daughter of the king and queen, or queen and queen.
Queen and queen. Trans rights! That's her mom!
Yeah.
Her mom and her bitch mom.
Oh, and also she's a Nephilim.
Yeah. Yeah, she's not actually a tiefling. She's allegedly supposed to be human, but she's not really.
So
she's the Mary Sue OC. As I say it, I realize she sounds like a Mary Sue. She's actually super not.
But none of this was like the Nephilim stuff, all that stuff. That was all me.
Yeah, no. She sounds like a Mary Sue if you don't know the campaign.
Yeah. So it's fascinating because, like, this is like an evil angel that wants to seize this kingdom for the empire of their heavens.
Yeah.
But can't through like war means, so has to usurp the throne in another way.
Yeah. So basically, gets with the king, queen, and has a kid and plans to just, like, eventually elevate herself through that process.
And then the rebellion polymorphs and kidnaps that child and, like, puts her in the street. Because the rebellion works for a demon that has the exact same goal. Exact same everything, just on the other side of the coin. That character is Brat's sister.
Who was not supposed to be her sister.
Who's actually the main antagonist of the first arc of that game.
Yeah. I love her. Freedom, my beloved.
The next person we'll talk about is actually Brat's eventual wife.
Yes! Wife!
So, this character, her name is Carthana Galistar. She is a half-elf, Eladrin specifically, ranger.
I love her.
And the idea behind her...
I'm going to put the commission I got of those two on the screen here. I'm thinking about putting pictures of them, and I'm going to put the commission I got of them.
A lot of inspiration for Carthana came from characters like... The example I always go to as a go-to example for this is Carolina Red versus Blue.
The number of people who know Red versus Blue who play D&D is like us. It's us and two of our friends. It's us and two of our friends.
She's like military hard-ass.
Yeah.
Because Carthana largely, most of her career was spent either preparing to be in or being in the Royal Military. Her father is the, like, High General of the military at the start of the campaign. And is actually the commander of the militant group that Brat starts with.
Through a series of convoluted circumstances. He basically gets put on babysitting duty for a little while.
Her mother disappeared when she was a small child. And she and her sister were raised by their dad to basically go into the military together.
Their dad's a bitch.
Yeah, it turns out
that guy.
Their dad is a bitch and the military is super fucked up behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And she finds out a lot of this. And finds out this is a lot of the reason why her mother left.
And she just dips out.
Yeah, and she defects from the military.
Bye.
And kind of joins
just walk out. You can leave.
This anti-royal military militia. And ends up, like, turning the party against her father.
Good. You do love to see it.
Her whole thing is, she's been trained since childhood, you know. There's a story she tells one of the characters that when she was 6, her father took her to the middle of a mountain in a storm and left her to find her own way back.
Yep. And she tells everyone this and everyone's like, hey, girl, what? That's not normal. She's like, oh, okay.
Um,
Cool, I thought that was just a thing everyone's dad did.
Unfortunately, at the start of things, her sister, Royce is her name, is still pretty indoctrinated.
Yeah, very sad. I do love her as well, though.
Yes. But no, she's got this very military hard ass, but she does have this, like, heart of gold, and if you can reach past the very thick exterior, she can be really
She's very
genuine
good.
and sweet.
And she can be very, very loyal, is the other thing. She and Brat have very different ways of expressing loyalty, but it is very there in both of them.
Yeah, she ends up being queen through a series of events.
I want to clarify something on this topic as well. I meant to bring this up. So, Brat is a girl, allegedly. I played Brat as a girl at the beginning, and at some point throughout the course of the campaign, I just kind of lost track. So I don't know what pronouns Brat uses, and I don't think Brat knows what pronouns Brat uses, but Brat is the king.
Yes.
Despite being allegedly a girl. She just was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna be the king, and nobody can stop me. And she is, because she's in charge of the country. And literally nobody can stop her.
One of my favorite moments that I think illustrates who Carthana is really well is at a certain point in the campaign, she's a DMPC to a degree, but she had picked up, for context, this magic bow that can do elemental damage types. And she has recently had a kid at this point in the campaign, so she hasn't been adventuring with people for a while. But the villain of the current arc that's going on at this point in the game is in the courtyard of the castle that Brad is king of, and kind of steps forward to challenge Brat on something.
Oh.
And I just describe, as she does this, the players, an arrow of fire strikes at the feet, cutting off the villain that's stepping forward.
Yeah.
And this person who's had a baby like 3 weeks ago, at most, is just perched in the window of one of the castle grounds that can overlook the courtyard with her bow drawn at this person who has a super powerful magic artifact.
Yeah, go Carthana, I love her.
Yeah, Carthana's great.
Carthana's so good.
Speaking of someone else who is vaguely edgy.
Yeah. Oh, do I get to talk about them now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the character that has the basis for an NPC in our actual play. This is, if you guys have seen our actual play, you should go watch it if you haven't. There's a little guy in there who is called Wrath, who I often mess the name up of because his name in this campaign was Scorn, and his, original name, allegedly, was Wrath.
Yeah.
I messed it up a lot because he's very, very basically the same guy.
Can I briefly
Yeah,
the cult?
go ahead.
So, basically, he was acquired by a religious order of blood hunters.
Yep.
To be a demon hunter, but what he actually was meant to manifest one of the 7 deadly sins.
He was basically meant to be a sacrifice.
Yeah, he and 6 other kids were raised to manifest these sins so they could be sacrificed in a ritual to cleanse those sins from the world.
It was really bad. It was really yikes.
Another one of those characters, Pride, is actually in our actual play.
Yeah, in our actual play, and I love her. She's one of the player characters.
But when I meet Scorn in Curse of Strahd...
So, Scorn was in a Curse of Strahd game. He is a deeply, deeply bitter son of a bitch. He is far and away probably the edgiest character we've ever had in a game that I've played, right? Mm-hmm. I can't really think of a character edgier than Scorn at the beginning. Razra was in that game and she was also pretty edgy, but it was a different kind of edgy.
The edgiest thing is actually a character that I introduced.
Yeah.
That you ended up taking over because your brain latched onto it.
Which one are you talking about?
The same campaign as that you say it was... Oh my god, why is my... Vasil.
Oh. Is Vasil edgier than Scorn?
They're close. Anyway.
Okay, yeah, no, they're really close. They're really close to tied. Yeah. Anyway, I might talk about Vasil a little bit later, because I might talk about someone else a little bit later, if we have time.
Yes.
Scorn is a tiefling. I think I already said that. Tiefling blood hunter, because was raised in a cult of blood hunters.
Order of the Ghost Slayer.
Yes, Order of the Ghost Slayer. If we had had a homebrew thing for it, we probably would have done something different with it, but it works out fine for what it is. He is very, very jaded and very, very bitter, and the only reason he works with the party, and this was by design, is because he has no other choice, because he is stuck in Barovia with the rest of them, and the only way to leave is to kill Strahd. So this is this whole long process of, I don't want to work with you, and you probably don't really want to work with me, but we're stuck, so I don't really have a choice, and neither do any of you. And eventually, he falls in love. He falls in love! Because all of my characters fall in love at some point.
One of the really cool defining early moments of Scorn for me was, I think, like, session 2 or 3.
Oh god, was it that early?
It was like the 8th hour of play.
Oh man.
When we were doing this.
We played a lot of that game at the beginning.
Arena gets cornered by Strahd.
Yeah.
And everyone else, except for Scorn, had somehow managed to be holed up in the guard station at the moment.
Yep.
And Scorn has, like, the perfect opportunity to cut loose. Like, no one would blame him for not interfering here.
Yeah.
But he's just like, you guys asked me, is there a church in Vallaki?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, there is. He's like, okay, great, I'm a winged tiefling. I'm just going to grab her and fly her to the church, and I will take whatever opportunity attacks I need to.
Yeah. Yeah. I love him. He's my favorite guy. I love Scorn. Scorn was one of my first forays into the much edgier side of character development. I was kind of trending toward it after a while. One of the characters I played in the Brat campaign was a little bit edgier, but not to that degree. Rick's my beloved. I can't talk about every character I love. If I talked about every character I love, we'd be here for days.
If this gets any viewership, we might be encouraged enough to do a part 2.
I will do a part 2. Please, please, please. Please let me do more than this.
But
it's
yeah,
so fun.
That is... Yeah.
You didn't let me talk about Esme. I know you're going to talk about Esme later. Scorn falls in love with Esmeralda, who is a canon Curse of Strahd NPC. And then also falls in love with the version of Mollymauk that we had in our home game. Go check out our game tale.
Yeah. So, if you want to hear a lot of Scorn's story, go check out the Mollymauk in our home game tale was released last Sunday.
Yep. It was like 2 days ago, guys. It's not that hard to find. But he falls in love with those two people, and it kind of is a disaster for him, but I love it, and it's great.
He ends up adopting a kid at some point,
too. He has a little baby guy, yeah.
So, speaking of Scorn.
Yes, please.
Esmeralda.
Yes, I love her.
So, she is...
This is a DM thing again.
Yeah, a DM thing. She's actually a canon character in Curse of Strahd, but I heavily modified her.
And also, I stole her for the actual play, just like I stole everything else from you for the actual play.
Is a Vistani, she can walk out of Barovia. I kind of cut a lot of the Van Richten stuff because I think it's white saviory and dumb.
It's bad.
She was from a tribe of slaughtered Vistani. She walked out of Barovia for a long time. She got kind of wandering the streets. She got into a crowd of, first of all, human variant Vistani, arcane trickster rogue usually. Sometimes a player is a blood hunter. It goes back.
It depends.
She gets caught up in the Waterdeep area with this man who...
Yucky.
Their age range is a little more than dubious.
A little bit more than dubious. Yeah, it's bad.
I'll put it this way. When she is 25, he is 40, and they met when she was like 12.
Yep.
So
it's bad.
You can do some math there if you'd like.
Feel free to do the math on that one.
So it's very yikes.
It's very yikes. He's a little bastard, and I hate him.
They have a... This video is not going to get monetized when we get monetization, by the way.
No.
They have a kid together at one point.
Yep.
And after they have a kid, this is when this guy tries to kind of induct her into the Zentarum, which is who he works for. And at this point, she's like, right, I'm fucked up enough that I can't raise a kid on my own, but I'm gonna leave this kid at an orphanage step and just spend the rest of my life running from you.
Yep.
She takes heavy inspiration for a lot of things. One of the big inspiration points I used from her as a reference is Blake Belladonna from Ruby.
Yeah. Blake, my beloved.
She is a very powerful Vistani with the sight, which is one of the cool things. One of the very few people
Yeah.
that has the sight. The ability to tell the future via tarot cards. And she is also extremely bitter and extremely closed off. When
And that's why she and Scorn fall in love.
So nobody actually knew in the party about her kid until after Barovia.
Yep.
Which
She
is
just did not say anything about it. And everyone was like, well, why would we assume that?
and
then everyone found out and they were like, girl, why did you not tell us about this?
it was during a game of Never Have I Ever.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yes.
That was how we got started putting all of our characters through games
Yes.
like that in every campaign we do, because it's so fun.
And I believe it was Molly said Never Have Ever had a kid.
Yeah.
And there was a pause in it as we put a finger down.
Yeah.
Um,
Shocking that Molly has never done this, given some of his personality in that game.
What's ironic is he had.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't remember
He
it,
didn't.
but
He
he had.
didn't know. That's so sad. He had done that. He just didn't remember because he was 2. He's only 2 years old. How did he have a kid already?
Anyway, so
He's only
she
2.
ends up reuniting with this child at some point,
Yay.
falling in love with Scorn, falling in love with
Yay.
Molly. That polykill is a big central point of that game.
It is. It's real good.
And there are several points where she and Scorn fight off against her ex, Darian.
Bitch.
Yeah, he's real scary.
He's a really yucky boy.
But I really like her backstory. I think it's a very, it's simple, but it's very fucked up.
Yeah.
She's also very
It doesn't
edgy.
take a lot to fuck somebody up.
Yeah. It's one of those that I'm almost borderline on... It's borderline on taste, almost, in my mind, to a degree.
Yeah.
But these things happen to real people.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they do happen to very real people.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Do we have time? We are already
do,
at like
we do.
30 minutes.
Just keep it rolling.
Okay, should we just keep talking about them?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it my turn to talk about Demetra now?
Yeah. We each have one more, and then we're just going to briefly touch on something.
Okay. Demetra, my favorite lesbian. That's it. That's all I need to say. She is the biggest lesbian of all time.
Half Vistani, half Kalishtar, human psychic
She
were
didn't know she was half Vistani.
Not human. Half Kalishtar, half Vistani that she doesn't know about.
Yep. She
Psychic
thinks she's a
warrior fighter.
Kalishar at the beginning. They fucking whitewashed my lesbian.
So,
Can't have shit in water.
what happened in her backstory?
So, as we found out, thank you, DM. As we found out, first of all, we have played Demetra in 2 different games. She was also a player character in the Ayase game, which that's just what we refer to it as. We call it the Ayase campaign. She was also in the same game as Scorn. We just decided to reuse her. We didn't figure out about the Vistani thing until the Scorn game, though, did we?
No, you did.
Did we know about it before that?
Yeah,
Okay,
Vasil.
never mind. I'm stupid. Right, we knew about him before that game. Never mind. I'm a dumbass. Okay, anyway. We weren't sure if you were going to do it twice, but you did.
Yes.
So she was... Her dad's a bitch. Her dad had a child with a Vistani woman who had the sight to try to obtain a child with the sight for his own purposes, which was really shitty and nasty of him. And it worked. And so she was born and she was raised for a few years as a Vistani, and then he came and, killed her family and kidnapped her. And wiped what little memory she had of the event, and straight up just did not tell her about it ever, and just raised her, vaguely polymorphed her into a normal appearing white Kalishtar, yuck, and just kind of never said anything about it, and just hoped she would never figure it out.
Was able to, via magic means, basically hypnotize her to forget about these sessions.
Yeah.
Would constantly put her in sessions to basically abuse her future-telling abilities to monetarily and business-wise gain frequently.
Yes. Despite his absolute hardest attempts and best efforts, she turned out so annoying. In the best possible way. She's annoying in the same general way that Brad is annoying, basically just not taking any shit from anybody. She is an unapologetic lesbian in a world where that's dubiously legal at best in some places. And straight up illegal in the first place she ever went to. Not that that stopped her. One of my favorite Demetra jokes is she is both a lesbian illegally, because it is a crime, And legally, she has been noted to be a lesbian, so she is a legal and illegal lesbian at the same time. And that is one of my favorite Demetra facts.
Yes.
Her name was also not Demetra, but I refuse to say what her original name was.
So, one thing I'll touch on with this whole thing is, there's an arc for her. Her older brother ended up surviving that attack.
Yes.
And
she found him eventually, or he found her.
He settled down in this abandoned library in the desert where the Vistani tribe was killed. He put on this mask and cloak and made a deal with a warlock patron.
He's a warlock.
He spent several years just killing anyone
who came in the desert.
Yeah, questioning them for information on his sister and killing them. He became known as this, like, Jack the Ripper type thing. The Black Sands Butcher was his name. And
he's so cool.
Yeah.
He's real edgy. He's who we were talking about earlier. He's real edgy. But we didn't start with me playing him.
No. I debuted him.
And then
you were like... Grr.
I was like, is for me?
You're like, I'm already piloting multiple characters. What is this guy's backstory? I like him so much.
Please give him to me right now. And then you did, and then I kept him forever. Yeah. I pulled him into my little corner of these are all of the characters I play.
But no, she's really cool, and one of her girlfriends, funnily enough...
One of her girlfriends. She's had a million girlfriends, and she deserves all of them.
Is named, Sorn, which is one letter off from Scorn, which is funny.
Despite the fact that those two characters would never date. Because she's a lesbian.
Briefly before we move on, do you want to talk about the Brianna Demetra?
Yes.
Thing?
Yes, I want to talk about the Brianna Demetra thing. So in the very, very first iteration of the game we played with Demetra, in the original game with Aise, you as a DM were basically like, hey, I'm gonna give everyone in the party like a nemesis.
Imagine
they're gonna form their own adventure.
Imagine the rival party from Call of Netherdeep,
but worse.
First of all, this was the game released before Call of Netherdeep came out.
Yes, this is way before that.
But if they were all massive dicks.
Yeah. It actually turned out only one of them was a massive dick.
Yeah.
But we didn't intend for it.
Turns out it was fucked up person, fucked up person, fucked up person, serial killer.
Yeah. That one's still the worst.
Yes.
She's the problem. We put her away. Demetra's nemesis was Brianna Havendream, who is human, and who is deeply, deeply jealous of Demetra for having more status by being a favorable non-human race, and their families are nemesis. Brianna's dad and Demetra's dad are bitter, bitter rivals and also definitely gay. Which I think we're going to talk about that
this Sunday, yeah.
This is a great time for me to talk about them because their dads are definitely, like, super, like, hooking up behind the scenes.
And they're both rich and wealthy, but there's more sway to the Mistlai family, which is
Demetra's
thing. Because her father, Demetra's father, is a lawyer, now judge.
Yes.
And high justice at one point.
Yes.
Whereas Brianna's father is very powerful.
But not like that.
Very rich. But his specialty is, he is a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
He is the medieval equivalent of a neurosurgeon. He is a scientist.
So Brianna hates Demetra, and Demetra hates Brianna, and at some point, and I don't really know where this happened, at some point it went from, God, I hate this girl, to God, I want to kiss this girl.
No, exactly what has happened is I remember this.
Do you remember? Because yes. I don't remember how this happened.
It was a variant game, but we're going to ignore all the things that made a variant for a while, because we did several takes of this game.
Yes, we did.
There was a fight in where Demetra killed Brianna.
Oh, yeah.
And then I made a little background roll.
You made an executive decision.
I made a little background. I rolled for it. And you were like, what are you rolling for? I'm like, I'll tell you in a few scenes. A few scenes later, I'm like, you hear a voice in your head.
And I was like, no.
And yeah, Brianna's spirit inhabited
Demetra's brain. She got stuck in there. And from that point on, things just kind of devolved from these people are bitter rivals to these people's families are bitter rivals, and they're actually, like, super, super crushing on each other.
Yeah.
And at some point, I started writing, like, this is for no one's eyes but mine. This is for no one's eyes but mine, and I'm never gonna finish it. I wrote the first chapter of a fake dating AU.
Yes.
A fake dating fanfiction for them. I need to rewrite it now. I need to commit to this.
So, moving entirely to something different.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about something else now.
Kara L is who I want to talk about.
Oh yes, please! I love her so much.
So, Kara L is originally a drow
Mm-hmm.
who was raised in a super repressive environment where she was a slave, a tortured, brutally abused slave, a house slave to a family of high elves.
Yep. Yikes.
And she preyed on any power, on anything that could help her to get her out of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And because she equated high elf with good and power, to change her in that way.
Yes.
She woke up in Barovia with warlock magic as a high elf.
Yep.
And she had never really had a social interaction in her life that was proper.
Yeah.
So the dark powers are influencing her
Yep.
already, because that is the patron.
Yep.
Which was
Very
a
fun.
good call by you.
Yep. That was me DMing that one.
And she meets Strahd, and the first person to pay deep attention to her is Strahd von Zarevich.
Which is bad. That's a bad thing to have happen to you.
And because Strahd realizes maybe you catch more flies with honey, he seduces and romances Kara L.
And kind of fucks around with the rest of the party too, but not in that way.
Yes. There's like one member of that party that didn't buy into Strahd's bullshit.
And that was almost a disaster.
Yes. So Kara L at one point is like, you know, like I love Strahd and I trust Strahd.
I'm just deeply in love with this absolute bastard of a man.
And to the point that to prove her loyalty, she asks Strahd to turn her.
Into a vampire.
Yes.
Yeah, it was bad. I remember you told me that, and I was like, "Are you are you sure?" And you were like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Okay."
And in fact, at one point they
Nightmare.
They find, I believe it was, they find a cart where a man's wife is dying. I think it was.
Yeah.
Where a man's wife is dying. And Kara L's like, "It's okay. I can fix this." And she comes back, like 2 minutes later, and the wife is a vampire.
Yeah.
And then she also makes the man a vampire and instructs them to both go to Castle Ravenloft and serve Strahd.
Yeah.
This is a game that went into PvP, actually.
Yeah, this is one of our only games that's ever gone into PvP territory.
Yeah.
And it was frankly deserved.
As the character who never bought into Strahd's stuff, and Kara L kind of had this divide that was
Because
only,
one of them did not believe in this bullshit.
Yeah. That was only eventually resolved when she saw how fucking messed up for Arena Strahd still was.
Yeah.
And
basically got, like, concrete proof of the fact that he was manipulating the shit out of her.
And she asked him, like, "Do you care about me?" And he just didn't respond.
Yeah, he didn't answer. Was that over the Sending Stone?
Yeah, he left her on red over a Sending Stone, basically.
Yeah. She was talking to him, and she was, like, begging for his comfort, and was like, "Hey, listen, I love you. Do you still love me?" And instead of him saying no, or saying anything else, he just didn't say anything back. And I remember you telling me that was the most crushing thing you could have done to her.
Yeah,
and I knew that would be.
Because it became clear at that point the party was no longer gettable, so Kara L was no longer
relevant to him.
Yes.
Yeah, so he just didn't care enough to try. It didn't matter to him. It never mattered to him. And that was kind of what cemented that for her.
I love Kara L. She's so sad.
She's so sad.
One more thing I want to briefly touch on before we move on to our little last bonus category.
Yeah.
This is a character from actual play, so I don't want to go too deep into her. Oxford/Emily is awesome character, brainwashed former Zentarum High Inquisitor, who turns away from that life because of morality eventually breaking through the brainwashing, and uncovers a whole lot of past she didn't know she had.
Yeah.
We aren't sure what we're doing with the actual play at the moment, so
we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're working it out.
Anyway, I just wanted to briefly touch on her. This last bonus round is a character that you wish you had gotten to play more and would like to play again in the future.
Yep. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. The number one character I want to play more is Anima. He is an Aetherborn, or they are an Aetherborn. Kind of interchangeable pronouns between basically anything, but they as kind of a default. They are an Aetherborn. Aetherborn live, like, maybe 5 years. At most. And they are fully aware of this fact. They are a little bit fucked up about it, but basically their whole thing is, I'm not going to waste this time. I am going to live a very, very short life, if I live a life at all, and I know this. I have maybe a couple of years from where I am now, 2 or 3 years, to make my life worth living, and I am going to do that at whatever fucking cost. I am adventuring because I want to learn everything I can and experience everything I can and have every experience, good or bad or in between, because everything is good to me because it's all I'm ever going to get. One of the scenes that they had in the little bit of game that we played with them, I think this was the one where they talked about doing drugs.
Yeah, they smoked weed.
Yeah, they smoked weed, and they were like, this fucking sucks. And the person they were talking to about it was like, okay, why did you do it then? And they were like, because it was awesome. And this did not really make sense to anyone in this scenario. But what it boiled down to, basically, for Anima was, every experience is a good experience to me because it is an experience that I've never had before. So even if objectively, this is miserable and weird and uncomfortable and it sucks, it is new, it is exciting, it is something I have never experienced before, and I will probably never experience it again, so it is deeply important to me. They had this reverence for existence, and it was like nothing else we have ever seen before.
Yeah, and
it was such a compelling character, and I was like honestly surprised at how well I pulled it off.
And their joie de vivre, for a better lack of a better term, their like joy of life inspired the character that they were smoking weed with.
Yeah.
Who was this messed up person who was the child of a fucked up like bandit chief.
Yeah.
Who was also a trans man.
Yeah. Love that for him.
To make his name, he hadn't chosen the name yet.
Yeah.
Ether.
Yeah. That was a damn good scene. It just busted out of nowhere. I was playing a bunch of characters and I was like, you know, I'm gonna fuck around and find out. And it was one of the best scenes we've ever played for a game that didn't last very long.
So one of the games this is a game that actually did last long enough for me. One of my characters. If you were done.
Yes, I'm done.
Yes. So, I've played this character in several games, one of which went a full run of Curse of Strahd, but didn't really continue beyond that. This is actually a character I talk about in one of our first game tales, the Plague Doctor. She is Zalista. She is a feral tiefling ranger, Gloomstalker. I love her so much. The point of her is that she was raised by a hag who told her that her parents hated her, were ashamed of what she was and wanted to get rid of her, and they sold her to the hag. Raised by this hag and escaped from this hag's lair, but has always known that her parents were human, and that she was meant to be human, and that something went wrong that made her not a human, and she feels like humanity was stolen from her and denied from her. And yes, this is a trans allegory, by the way. And that she is, like, her overarching goal is prove I'm not a monster, find a way to get the humanity that should have been mine back.
Yep.
Because self-acceptance is for chumps.
Yeah. You hate to love yourself.
And it's interesting because that game, it got caught up in a lot of stuff. And I love how Lisa developed in the one Curse of Strahd game we played with her. But it's almost, just because that game, by nature we know Curse of Strahd soul that it resolves so quickly. Mm-hmm. There's so much more that, so much deeper it could have gone.
Yeah.
That even though we got through a Curse of Strahd campaign,
you want more.
Yeah. I've always wanted
to do it eventually.
I've always wanted to play a full, like, long form thing with this character because I think it's a really cool slow burn.
Yeah.
That can just go on for a long ass time.
I think it would be super cool, and someday I will make it happen for real.
Maybe someday Zalista and Anima will play in the same game.
Yeah, would love to see that happen.
Did I ever tell you the dumbest idea I've had to put together, like, the dumbest possible
I really want to hear it
thing?
now.
Okay, so this is a random idea I had.
Okay.
Just, like, sending out a form email to play with something to get, like, Zalista or Anima or whatever character that hasn't gotten traction, we badly wanting traction, maybe Cirque, even though I've played multiple games with her, is to send out this stupid, like, form letter.
Yeah.
To, like, anyone who's relevant.
Yeah.
and just be like, hey, you haven't played D&D before. You want to try?
Yeah.
Like, hello, The Rock.
Yeah.
And send out like 500 of those, just hope that one person responds.
That would be so funny.
If you would like us to send the form letter to someone, sure.
Tell us in the comments.
Yeah. Speaking of comments, this has been a very long video.
Yeah.
Feel free.
Sorry for rambling so
Dude,
much.
tell us about your own characters.
Yeah, tell
or
us
characters
about
you want to play. In the comments below. If you like any of these characters, tell us about it, or you can feel free to use them in your own home game.
Ooh.
It is late in the morning, and I'm in a ton of pain.
We're gonna go to bed.
Yeah, we appreciate if any of you listen to this, just self-indulgence. Let us know about your stuff. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you for watching this video from College of Lore. Remember to like this video, subscribe to join the party, and have a fantastic adventure.